The late afternoon sun dipped behind the hills as Maya and Adam made their way through Santiago Canyon. The sprawling landscape, with Irvine Lake shimmering in the distance, was supposed to be the perfect spot for an evening hike. It was quiet. Too quiet, Maya thought. The winding trail felt more isolated the deeper they went, with only the occasional rustle of wind through the brush.
Adam had been excited about this hike for days, talking about how peaceful the area was. He'd heard about it from a coworker. Said it was a hidden gem that not many people knew about. Maya had never been much of an outdoor person, but she liked spending time with Adam, so she'd agreed to come along. "This place is really something," Adam said, glancing over his shoulder. "Look at that view."
Maya nodded, though her eyes kept darting to the shadows that seemed to stretch longer the farther they walked. "Yeah, it's quiet." Adam chuckled. "That's the point, babe. No crowds, just us and nature." But that wasn't what made her uneasy. It wasn't the solitude, it was something else. Something about the way the trees stood too still, the way the trail felt abandoned. She adjusted her backpack, forcing a smile. "I guess I'm just not used to being this far out." "We're fine," Adam reassured her, giving her hand a squeeze. "We're not lost. The lake's just over the ridge."
They kept walking, the path narrowing as they ventured deeper into the canyon. The trail twisted and turned, and soon they found themselves in a stretch that seemed miles from the world. The stillness was oppressive now, the kind of silence that made every footstep echo louder than it should.
That's when they saw him.
A man stood in the middle of the trail, a few hundred yards ahead. He was tall, wearing a dirty baseball cap, his sleeveless shirt exposing muscular arms covered in faded tattoos. He wasn't moving, just standing there watching them. Maya immediately slowed her pace, her stomach tightening. Adam noticed the man too, but kept walking, his body tense but steady. "Afternoon," Adam called out, his voice firm but casual. "We're just passing through."
The man didn't move. Instead, he smirked, his eyes gleaming with something cold. "Passing through, huh? Don't usually see folks like you out here."
Maya's grip tightened on Adam's arm. Her mind raced, her instinct screaming that something wasn't right. "Let's just go, Adam," she whispered, but Adam didn't stop. "We're just hiking," Adam said calmly, his steps slowing but still moving forward.
The man's smirk deepened, and he stepped closer, blocking their path. "Hiking. Right. Don't look like you belong out here, though." Adam squared his shoulders, his hand slipping from Maya's as he stepped forward. "We're not looking for trouble, just let us pass." The man let out a low chuckle, his gaze shifting between them. "Not looking for trouble? Looks to me like you already found it." Maya's heart pounded in her chest, but before she could say anything, Adam swung. His fist connected hard with the man's jaw, sending him stumbling back, his smirk fading into shock. Adam pushed him again, knocking him to the ground.
The man groaned, wiping a trickle of blood from his mouth. He stared up at Adam with a twisted smile. "You're gonna regret that," he spat, before scrambling to his feet. Instead of heading back down the trail, he turned and bolted into the woods, disappearing into the thick brush. Maya grabbed Adam's arm. "We need to get out of here. Now."
Adam stood still for a moment, watching the man vanish into the trees. Something about the way he'd run didn't sit right with him, but he nodded. "Let's go."
They hurried down the trail, the eerie silence returning, heavier than before. The sky had darkened, the last bits of daylight fading fast. As they walked, Maya kept glancing over her shoulder, her pulse quickening with every step.
Do you think he's gone?
Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper.
I don't know, Adam muttered, his gaze fixed ahead. But we need to get out of here. That's when they heard it.
At first, it was a low rumble, distant and indistinct. But it grew louder, engines revving, getting closer.
What the hell is that? Maya asked, her voice shaking. Adam stopped, his eyes scanning the horizon. Through the trees, they saw them, figures on dirt bikes and ATVs cutting through the hills like shadows.
Maya's breath caught in her throat as the riders came into view. There were at least 5 of them, maybe more, all wearing white robes, some with hoods, others with their faces visible. The man Adam had fought was at the front, his face smeared with dried blood. He wasn't smiling anymore. As they rode closer, the man lifted his arm, pointing casually in their direction, almost as if it were an afterthought. Adam's heart pounded in his chest. Is he pointing at us? Maya whispered.
I think so, Adam replied, his voice low, his body tensing. We need to move. Now. They scrambled off the trail, ducking into the thick brush, trying to stay out of sight. The roar of the engines grew louder, the riders getting closer. Maya's hands trembled as she crouched behind a tree, her breath coming in shallow bursts. Adam pulled out his phone, recording the riders as they passed.
Through the leaves, he filmed them, hooded figures on modern machines, their robes billowing in the wind as they sped past, their laughter ringing out in the night air. Adam's hand shook as he captured the scene, the eerie sight of the modern-day clan blending into the landscape.
Adam? What are you doing? Maya hissed, her voice barely audible. People need to see this, Adam whispered back, slipping the phone into his pocket. We can't let them get away with this. The riders moved on, their engines fading into the distance. Maya let out a shaky breath, her entire body trembling. We have to get out of here. Let's go. They carefully made their way back to the trail, every step feeling like it took too long. Maya's heart pounded in her ears, her mind racing. They had to be close to the car now. Just a few more minutes, and they'd be safe. But then, the engines roared back to life. They're coming back, Adam said, grabbing Maya's hand. Run! They sprinted down the trail, their legs pumping as fast as they could go. The riders were close behind, the sound of engines deafening as the bikes tore through the brush.
Maya's lungs burned, her legs shaking as they ran, but the riders were gaining on them. She glanced back and saw the man Adam had fought, his face twisted into a sneer. They're catching up, she cried, her voice shaking with fear.
Adam led her off the trail and into a ravine, hoping to lose them in the dense trees. They huddled behind a large rock, trying to control their breathing as the engines roared past overhead. The riders' voices echoed through the canyon, their laughter carrying through the night. Adam pulled out his phone, replaying the footage he had captured. His hands were trembling. We need to send this to someone, he whispered. We can't let them get away with this.
But before they could move, they heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate.
The man from earlier stood at the top of the ravine, his face twisted into a smile. He lifted his arm, pointing down at them.
I think I found them,